but I wouldn't be surprised, you know.
You can stand up for these photos.
I'm going to come around and introduce myself, but to each one of you. But I wanted to get started with you taking out a page for notes and talk to each other about this, and then write down some thoughts on this question. I'm going to be collecting your notes at about the halfway point at the end point of this class. It's going to be worth a significant number of points, 7% of your grade. And what I'm going to be checking for is that you followed all my directions and answered questions when I've asked. So anytime I need you to write something down, there's going to be a red bullet point or number or letter. Here, I don't need you to write this down, but your thoughts about this. So talk to each other, think of a way of answering this. And I'm going to go around and give everybody the syllabus. Did everyone have access to housing?
Yes.
I drive by homeless encampment, one of the sanctioned ones by the airport every day. Should we be giving them money to find homes? I see a no, I see a no, I see a yes. A no. Should there be a move to make sure that there's always affordable housing available? When you build an apartment complex that is high end, should they be required to have some low cost apartments as part of their permit?
Well, I mean, we have like an alternate, you know, if we're going to build these higher end ones, you at least should have the equal amount.
California law, is that an appropriate California law, or is that government overreach? Looking at somebody who I saw went like this. Is that too, is that the government telling private business owners too much of what to do? Anybody on that side? Yeah, talk about that. We're not going to jump you, man. I'll save you, right?
No, well, my answer to the question is that I believe that we should continue to use the free market as the greatest success. And if those who take the biggest risk will succeed, sure, but if they fail, they fail. If there's always opportunity for that, but we need risk versus reward. I think that if, yeah, you're willing to put your life on hold because you want to see something stuff.
And you shouldn't be held to solve society's problems when you're just trying to make a living.
Yeah.
Those who answered the opposite, do you see his point at least? What else? Should everybody have access to affordable health care? If you're an American, richest country in the world in many respects, should everyone have access to very affordable health care? Or should it be something you must work for? You have to work to get health care. California will give health care to anybody and subsidize them. Texas, my home state, in order to get subsidized, you know what you need? A job, which is the right choice, which is part of your utopia. How are we doing economically? How's our economy doing right now? Yeah, and that's amazing because it's not. By every statistic, our unemployment rate's 3.4%, our inflation rate's 3.4%. That's called the misery index when you add those two things together. If you're looking for a job, the likelihood you don't find a job is only 3.4% of people. Historically, our average, what we want is 5%. So we're doing better than average. Inflation, we'd like to keep it at 2%. Is it a little high? Yeah, it's a little high. Now, did it come down? It came down quite a bit from after COVID, 9% down to 3.4%. So we're going to talk a lot about where we actually are and where we're going. Now, why, anybody know why prices have come down from 9% a year to 3.4% a year? Yeah, they stopped giving the stimulus money. They stopped the stimulus, but there's something else that's going to be a big part of this class.
Is there an increase in interest rates?
Yeah, the Federal Reserve Bank that's in charge of making our money, regulating our money, and regulating how much our money costs, meaning how much you can borrow for, has been raising interest rates to try to slow our economy down, to not cause a recession, and to keep prices going lower. Are they going lower? 9%, 3.4, indeed. In fact, they've maybe just nailed this, what we call a soft landing, right? the opposite of soft landing is a crash. And that metaphor, a crash would be we raised interest rates so high, our economy fell into a recession. Have we? No. But Americans are always just super pessimistic, right? Even when things are relatively decent, oh, times are tough. Yes, it's likely we feel that way because now I don't go out to eat as much because I look at the prices and while I can afford it, I go, oh, I'll make something at home or go to a friend's house. So I think that's part of our perception around the economy being poorly, run poorly. Are there things I haven't mentioned that you believe should be part of our utopia? Utopia being this mythical, perfect place economically. What do you see? Should we do everything to get rid of homelessness? Like I said, healthcare in the back. There's a, very nice. We have a country called Bhutan that measures its gross national happiness, and they base every policy on whether or not it'll make people happier or not happier. And we're going to look into that of the debate between growth of our economy or growth of our happiness. So we're going to cover that in greater detail.
Yeah, probably Japan, something that Japan usually is known for is their social moral for raising their children is a more group effort to raise the next generation, rather as in America, it's solely focused on either A, the teacher, or B, the parent,
right,
rather than all of the above. The society helps to raise children.
In microeconomics, I show a map of a place in Washington, I believe Seattle, where there's this one street that divides two neighborhoods, and they're the same economic background, they go to the same school, right? And one's not richer than the other. And on one side of the street, the kids grow up and become really successful. On the other side of the street, less successful. Why? It seems on one side of the street, they have more churches, more youth leagues, more community raising the children and getting something that's called social capital. Social capital is that information you get from people in your life about what to do to succeed and what to avoid that causes problems in your life. Did you get good social capital growing up? Have you gotten it better? Right? I think in some ways here in college, we provide, at least I try to provide some social capital beyond teaching economics, some lessons learned, some ideas, like what I was talking about with skills-based technological change without taking, actually, sorry, last month. What else? I saw one other hand, Peyton.
I was gonna say, like, not just like affordable living in apartments, but also like housing. Like, I saw in California, the average house is like $420,000 now. I mean, like at least you make at least $120,000 a year to afford a down payment, which is just incredibly unrealistic. It's like twice the amount of people make per year.
I just visited San Francisco and was house sitting for somebody, but I noticed so many homes with a lockbox on the door. You know what a lockbox means? What's going on at that house? Airbnb. So you've got a lot of people buying up homes as investment, Airbnb-ing, and then what happens? They're not available to everybody else. It drives up the prices, drives up rents. Should Airbnb be allowed as much as it is in areas where rents are really high? As a tourist, yes, right? But as citizens, I think maybe we have to look at that a little clearer. Although, in the back, you might feel that's government overreach, right? Because maybe the alternative argument would be that people making money on Airbnbs is going to create more demand to build more houses in the long run. And I thought, yeah, right.
So he was talking about like the housing market and stuff like that. I was doing, previous year when my wife was looking at houses, noticed that some houses, no matter the like overall like finish of the house, it was still worth something because it just by the book it had 3-bedroom, 2-bath. No matter how horrible it was already at this price just because it had these
it's comparable to what they say in the
qualities,
right?
But this could be a rundown shack. But hey, it's a $30,000 because
and in some areas it's the land too, because someone will just raise the house, like blow it up and build something else just right there on that land. Okay, so I wanted to move on to this idea, if it will let me. So I just learned this and I found this fascinating, this idea of utopia, that perfect place. So utopia, an imagined place or state of things in which everything's perfect. You don't have to write this down. When something's red, or I ask you to, write it down. So we know what a utopia is, right? We've got that idea behind us. Well, I learned this. Utopia from the Greek, utopos, means no place or nowhere. So utopia really means no place. that the place doesn't exist. Now, here's how I'm going to put that together. What economics is at the macro level is, what do you dream of? What do you want to see in a society? Because it doesn't exist right now, right? It's a no place. It's a utopia in the ancient sense. And by following certain policies, by doing certain things that you believe are appropriate to create your utopia, you can get closer to that no place and create that utopia. So a lot of times in economics, we're talking about things that are bad, but we're always looking towards solutions. And as I stressed in my last class, what economics does is use mathematics and statistical analysis to try to take us out of our monkey emotional brain and go to our rational brain, rather than going with just what I believe. Well, what does the data tell me is most effective to try to create that utopian place that we all dream of? So the purpose of utopia is to open our eyes to possibility, is what I've read somewhere before. So I'm going to do a brief introduction here on this class, and then go to some concepts here, and then go over the syllabus and go over how we're going to use Canvas. So if you would, let's do an introduction to what this is all about today rather than tomorrow. So this is going to come out of chapter 1. Remember, anything that has a red bullet point, outline point, whatnot, you need to write those things down. So if you write down what is economics and its definition, let me kind of expand on this a little bit. So we're a social science. Kind of a problem. Social science deals with people, and science deals with measuring things. If we're talking about, I'm going to read your name back there. Okay, Maddie. Okay, so it's a social science and we're measuring happiness. How am I going to measure your happiness? Am I going to ask you how happy you are? You're going to be honest? And if class is going good and you're enjoying my class, you may be happy for a time. And then it starts droning on and on about mathematics. What happens to your happiness? I mean, for some people it goes up. For you, that maybe it goes down. So is our happiness a steady state? So it's changing all the time. Economists have a real hard time with research. We do a lot of research about happiness, but it's really difficult to really get how happy is somebody. I can't measure like the number of smiles on your face. How else would you measure happiness?
You could try to measure it negatively. Say, okay, how often did this person suffer from?
I like that. That's measurable. So there you're looking for lack of suffering. But if happiness is much more hard to gauge. There's some studies where they'll ask people 1 to 10 how happy you are, and then they'll do a interview thereafter, and then find out they're complaining about their wife and their kids, and they'll go, okay, downscore that happiness by a certain amount because they just wrote something to seem like they're happy. Do Americans in general want, if I ask you how happy you are you really going to be honest with me? Do you want me to know that you're really depressed, or you want to kind of seem like you're okay? And I think a lot of people lift their scores and aren't really honest. So that and other things in social science are really difficult because we're dealing with human behavior, and how do I accurately measure human behavior? It's very, very difficult. So I think I told this to the last class. I went to a presentation from one of our vice presidents the other day, and we talked about how if we sign up students for 15 units, are you being pushed by your counselors to sign up for 15 units? No? Yeah?
Yeah.
So it's a new push. They're pushing students to sign up for 15 units. Okay, why? Well, they found that at one college that where students took 15 units, they were getting higher GPAs. And so the inference was, if you take 15 units, you get better GPA. Can you think of an alternative explanation of that data? Yeah.
The people that are more dedicated at school are already good at school, so they're going to get
Right, he was saying the causality ran from 15 units to better grades, when in fact the causality is, I mean, what one thing causes another, that people who are high achievers tend to take 15 units. Does that make sense? But we're doing a policy based on a wrong assumption. He further went on to do this. He said, well, we did an experiment to prove this. We took students in 2019 and made them take 15 units, and then we measured how they did in 2020 and 21. how are we taking classes in 2000 and 2021 online? How were you doing in those classes? What were teachers being like in those classes? Were we being tough graders or were we being pretty generous? Very generous. So his proof was grades in 2020 when everyone was taking their classes online, as if that's proof. So my point being this, social sciences are really fraught. People come up with these statistics that tend to prove they think prove things, and then they enact policies that maybe, like you said, you're getting pushed into 15 units.
I think it's
You know, if people are being pushed and the causality doesn't run that way, we actually could be doing the wrong thing. And so this is what I call a soft science, what I study. Hard sciences in biology and physics, if you come up with an outcome about how fast light goes, does that change? The speed of light at its extreme has a certain number. When I do biological studies, there are certain biological chemical determinants that don't change. Do human beings change? The society change? Yeah, so we have to be really humble, I believe, economists, because we get a little bit too over our shoes in interpreting our data at times. We are, say confused, at times we are concerned with the efficient use of scarce resources. So we want to, given that there's only so many resources on planet, so many cars, so many nice cars, so many apartments, how do we allocate those things? And then how do we create the most satisfaction from human wants? Now, something that gets away from just textbook definitions. This is more my understanding about how an economy works and how a macro economy works. Now, why should we be concerned about a growing GDP? So again, I take your point on happiness and we're going to address that. But now, Maddie, right? But now let's just think, okay, as economists think, okay, growing economy, growing GDP, gross domestic product. Why is that important? Outside of happiness, because it leads to higher standards of living, to better material well-being. Now, does better material well-being lead to more happiness? As you go from poverty to middle class, do people get happier? Yeah, that's a true statement. There's a limit there, and I'll talk more about that maybe later in the semester. So some, my daughter included, would say we need to get away from growing economies because all that does is use more resources and create more pollution. But bottom line, if we want growing standards of living, we need a growing economy. If you would, keep writing these down. I think they relate here. And really a growing economy is a growing network of people. Think about all the interactions that are taking place out there in terms of who's buying what from whom. I went to Home Depot the other day and bought something. Home Depot had bought that from a vendor. That vendor had bought its materials from somebody else. The vendor had to hire employees who trusted their employer to pay them. That's just one and I could even go back to the person who wove the fiber or grew the cotton for the gloves that I bought. So as you have a growing network size, you get a growing economy. But what's key, and a lot of people don't really credit economists with saying this, is that really it involves not just a network, but a trusting interconnection of people and organizations, a greater flow of information between different parties who trust one another. Adam Smith, the father of modern economics, stressed in all his seminal books that it's not just trade and specialization that creates wealth, but it's that you have a society where people share moral values, that they create trust with one another. Do we have a trusting society? If we have less trust, then we have less growth because our networks would be a little bit more unstable. So there's one way of looking at this, that we want a growing economy because we want growing standards of living, and we want that growth comes from growing our network, trusting network of people. The other definition of economics, yeah, please, Joseph.
What do you mean by trust? Do you mean like trust not to renege on steel, or trust that really do so, or trust that violence won't become a part of the interaction? Or do you mean trust like, yeah, I trust my best friend?
No, I mean the former. So I trust that when I went to Home Depot, if that product's defective, I can return it for a refund. And I trust further, if they don't accept it, the manufacturer would give me a new pair. Furthermore, that Home Depot has a relationship with that vendor, and they trust that if somebody returns something, that vendor will accept it. I could keep going with the workers at Home Depot trust that they will be paid equitably for their time, that they're contracted to a certain rate. When they work certain hours, they'll be paid for those hours. Right now, there's a controversy and some laws being discussed about migrant farm workers who are not being paid their full wages. When you have that take place, you're going to have fewer workers who are going to go to work because they don't trust that they're going to get paid what they're due. And then you're going to have crops that are going rotten in the field because you don't have that trusting network of relationships. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, economics also is how we organize our material lives. What's your plan to get to where you want, to get the kind of material life that you want? What do you want? A house, car, boat, two houses, two cars? Okay, so now I want to zoom out in a different way. So something that I do on most vacations is breaks, winter break, summer break, is I travel around the world and I travel to underdeveloped countries. I'm really interested in poverty and what really poverty is. So here is a village that's in Vietnam. This was winter break 2 years ago. I like to get on a dirt bike and I like to travel through a country where I don't know the language and stay only on dirt roads and don't go on freeways and go past tiny little villages where people are universally, except Guatemala, that was a little bus. Not that they're bad people, but they're going through a political turmoil right now. And a gringo going through on a motorcycle was not roundly welcome. But in Vietnam, roundly welcome. And does this look impossible? But to you, does this look impossible? Yeah, Parker, one.
Well, explaining over usually the year, so what is baby house, it's very random parts they might have found, one of like using random buckets they probably picked up from the bigger cities to collect clean water. Probably having to make their own clean water. I mean, I went to a Fijian village, we got to see like all that they do. Like, I'm sure like the people are usually happy, so that's the younger kids. Because the second they get a big,
They go to the city, right?
they go to the city to collect money for their town, or they get straight to their work to help like make sure they feel like they right. Like,
Here, this was all one ethnic group. There were Thai ethnic group within northern Vietnam. These are all, you know what these are right here? All there. Rice paddies, so they're growing their own rice. Here, the cement block right there is a cement block this big that is open, has water in it, has fish. And they harvest the fish waste for fertilizer, and then they eat the fish. They have gardens in front of every one of the houses with fresh vegetables. All of these homes are built with the wood here locally. When they build the home, you see the whole village come out and everyone helps one another. In fact, I saw one of these pet dams that was broken down in another village. And I saw children, grown men, elderly women, everyone in the town all working together to fix that and then having lunch together. And I don't think anybody was saying, well, where's my money? Right? It was all about let's pitch in together. They have chickens, ducks, pigs, little pygmy pig, all running around throughout the front of their houses. This is all one village who helps one another out, helps each other with their resources. I see poverty, but I also saw people really living what seemed to be fulfilled, rooted lives in that environment. And so my question is, okay, we want economic growth, but where is it that they can teach us something? And where is there something there that might be helpful in our happiness while we are certainly much more wealthy than them? There's the next one. Okay, here's a village in Thailand. This is on the border of Myanmar. It was right during ethnic cleansing where the, believe it or not, Buddhist army was killing Muslims. any Muslim, and trying to rush them across the border here. So there's a giant genocide happening just to the left over here. But here you see this village, all the homes up on stilts. Now here, do you see any modern technology? We're going to learn something called land, labor, and capital, things that go into making everything. And as you have more land, labor, and capital, more natural resources, more human resources, more technological resources, you tend to grow economically. Are they bereft of it, or do you see kind of a Where's Waldo? Because there's something up there.
The cell tower.
Yeah, you'll notice that right there. So here, they have cell towers, they have electricity. Almost every home, people are in there watching soap operas, Thai soap operas, and they're on their phones playing with maybe Facebook. Everyone's on Facebook. So yeah, they were living impoverished lives, but they certainly had some leapfrogging technology where they were living in our world, in a very different world here. Oh, by the way, do you see their sewers? Right down to the river. So certainly some room for improvement.
The biggest toss it over the head.
Just let it run down. Now here is a village in Colombia. I went here, it's the last of my tourist photos. Went here summer before last and toured all of the Andes on a dirt bike again. Went through some cartel territory, got robbed once, got warned a couple of times, and came back alive. So this village, obviously very vertiginous. Anybody? Vertiginous? Vertical, right? You see the vertical drop, it's up on the very top of a hill. Notice this girl here, what are her utopian dreams? What does she want? Colombians, a lot of them want to come here. A lot of Venezuelans also want to come here, but they're also a very proud people with, I think, a vibrant economy and a new leader, one of their first really democratically elected leader who's going against corruption in their country. And that leads me to just talk a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about economic theories of development that some have taken that class or are taking that right now, where if you have a country with strong institutions where people can know that the laws are going to be enforced equally, they're going to have a greater sense of their own capabilities and become a wealthier nation. So I see Colombia used to be what we call a third world nation. It really is a second world nation now. It's on its way to being a middle class country. So to sum up this idea of what we're going to learn, we are a dismal science because we deal with hard things like poverty, like homelessness, like food insecurity, like high rents, like inflation. But our ends are utopian. That is to create that great place that we all dream of, even though we have differences in democracy, and we try to work those out to come up with a common dream. And how we do this and how we're going to conduct this class is we're going to spend a lot of time looking at data, doing analysis, and doing critical thinking. I don't think I showed you in this class, but the key to, on average, doing better in the labor market, to making more money, is to have really good analytic thinking skills and really good critical thinking skills. And that's what this class is all about. Trying to understand reality using some simplifications to create models about how humans behave and how markets work. I'm going to show you an example of that, of where we're going, and to show you a picture, hopefully not to panic you, but to show you what you will master by our final. And what you're going to see here, I'm going to let everybody finish writing, are 4 graphs. So we know X and Y axes, is on Y and X axis, right? And then you know a line that then represents the relationship between those variables. Have many of you studied supply and demand? Right, so the supply curve is upward sloping. As the price goes up, suppliers will want to supply more of something. Now, is there really such a thing as a supply curve or a demand curve? Does it exist somewhere? Is it hiding in a closet somewhere in a business? No, it's just a way, it's an analytic way of thinking. Let's try to estimate how people behave, and let's look at that on a graph that represents the mathematics of our assumptions. And so let me show you this. So we're going to have a market that's controlled. Who controls our money? How much money we have? Who in the government? The Federal Reserve Bank. We're going to be talking about the Federal Reserve a lot because, so let me give you an example of why you want to know this. I was able to buy, yeah.
Is the Federal Reserve part of the government?
Yes, no. It is legally mandated by the government, but it is owned by its member banks. It's been given by the government the sole authority to print our currency and regulate our currency. And the president can't tell them what to do. The president appoints their members and they're on a board for 14 years. So they outlast any president, and one comes up out of 7 every 2 years. So no one president can stack the board. So they're independent, but they are somewhat ruled by our government. And why is that important? So that when a president's trying to get reelected, she can't just say, do this, and they do it. You know what, in countries like that, a country like that, Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe had a dictator, Robert Mugabe, who had complete control over his central bank. He's corrupt. How do corrupt people stay in power?
Control everything.
Control. How do you control people? What's a good way to control people? Money. Now, he was in control of printing money. What do you think he did? Because people started liking him less. So he needed to print more money and print more money. They literally had a Zimbabwe $1 trillion bill. Their inflation rate was 100 million%. We're complaining about 3.4%, and theirs was 100 million%, such that on toilets, they said no Zim dollars. Please use toilet paper. Why?
It's cheaper to use the toilet, use the dollar.
Use their dollar than toilet paper. Now, what have they done to bring their inflation down to 8%? Adopted the US dollar. I don't know if any of you know about the new leader in Argentina. They have 100-something% inflation. What is he going to do? Get rid of their currency and adopt the dollar. Why do these countries who are in trouble adopt the dollar? Because it's stable and predictable. And because that system I described is one that the world trusts, and I think we should trust in large measure. Now, when we're in an economic downturn, when we fall into our next recession, what do you think this bank will do to try to help us out of it, this central bank? Will it get more money to people, less money to people?
Print more money.
Print more money. Now, what will it do with the amount of interest it charges banks that then banks charge you? They have direct control over this. If the economy is poor, what are they going to do with the price of money if you borrow money? Interest rates are going to go up or down? They're going to go down. When should you maybe buy a house? And what happens to home prices when we're in a recession? They go down. If you can know this and watch the paper and understand the material I'm going to present to you in this class, you will know when to buy a house at a low interest rate at a low price and the indicators of when it's time to sell. I've done it twice and made a good amount of money from not that much skill, right? Just knowing here's where our economy is going. Now is a good time to borrow money. Now is a good time to buy. Now is a good time to sell. We're at a peak. But then further, for you as business majors, for those of you who are, this will help you see into the future about, okay, should we expand our factory? Should we expand into new lines of business? Well, how much does money cost right now? Is it cheap to borrow or is it expensive to borrow? Right now, is it cheap or expensive to borrow money? Very expensive to borrow money. How do you know what's going to happen? You learn macroeconomics and you'll know next year it should be going down. So that's the money market. I won't go into all these. We're going to learn about foreign exchange markets. So let me ask you this. When the dollar is strong, is that a good thing? Sounds good, doesn't it? Strong dollar. Okay, so our strong dollar means it's more expensive to the rest of the world. Strong. Okay, if our dollar is more expensive to the rest of the world, what does that make our products? It makes our products more expensive. What do people do when something's more expensive? They buy less. Strong dollar. Okay, let's do the other side. When the dollar is strong, it means we can buy more of foreign currencies with our money. Like when our dollar is strong, go on vacation overseas, right? Because other countries are on sale, essentially. But On the other end of it, we have a strong dollar. We can buy foreign goods cheaper. And so what are we going to do? Buy more American-made stuff or foreign stuff? Okay, so wait, let's revisit this. Is the strong dollar a good thing? We sell less of our own stuff overseas and buy more stuff from people overseas. Is that a good thing for our economy? No. So there are many misperceptions about weak dollar, because weak, we're Americans, we don't want to be weak, but weak rocks. Weak means our products are cheaper to the rest of the world and their products are more expensive to us. And so people buy more of our stuff, we buy less of other people's stuff. And what happens to job creation in our country? It goes up. So important things to learn there. And then here's a model for our whole economy. And so this is, if we fall into a recession, what will our government do? And here's all the things that you're going to know and understand how each of these things relate to one another. It looks like a lot right now, but we're going to do building blocks up to this point where you're going to understand how do we help the economy when it's struggling? How do we slow down the economy when you have 9% inflation like we did last year, not fall into a recession and get inflation down? We're going to learn that. We've been doing that fairly successfully. Now, presidents, Biden, Trump, they like to take a lot of credit and they get a lot of blame. They don't have a hell of a lot to do with these bigger movements. But since we're so political, we often ascribe these things to them. And by the way, I see you take pictures on the study guide for the final. This is already up there with a video explaining it, but take your time. All right, let's move on to the syllabus. Take that out if you would. So note, here is our, here's our homepage for our class. You can go to the left right here to see the syllabus, and then I'm going to go into modules to show you things within the class. Notice here on the syllabus, it shows you what's due and when, and then I can click here and look at the syllabus. So, I turned 55 last summer. I've been teaching for about 25 years. I could retire right now, but I don't want to because I really enjoy this job. And I'm happy to be here. So as long as I'm happy to be here, I'm going to be here. So you have a teacher who could leave, but isn't. And so hopefully I'm going to be decent and really care about this, because why would I be here unless I don't? So my background, I'm going to get into my background throughout the year quickly. I was very poor growing up. I had to work many different jobs to go to college. I did not get financial aid because my stepdad's a church. Am I recording? I am. Okay. Sorry for that personal note. So I worked a lot, struggled, went to Chico State, got an internship with AT&T, who then hired me on full time, and I worked on interactive computer-based training on technology. They paid for my master's degree in economics. From there, I quit after they got me my master's, and then worked for the government as an economist, traveled around the Western United States, visiting industries, businesses in every industry in our country, studying their pricing policies. From there, my lifelong dream was to become an American diplomat, to serve in consulates and embassies overseas. Chico State beat out in the group who was testing for it. There was Harvard, there was Stanford, there was even Oxford, and Chico State got it, not me. Chico State, my point being, you have any dream, this is my dream since I was childhood. My wife at the time, friends said, dude, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, whatever, right? You can do it. Don't trust the doubters. Don't trust anybody who says you go to Chico State, you can't achieve it. Anything you want to achieve, you can achieve. If I could do it, you can do it, right? I started out poor with nothing and got where I wanted to go. Chico State is great if you put your mind to it and not, there are things at Chico that can get you a little off schedule. You study Sunday through Wednesday, right? That's what me and my buddies did. Thursday through Saturday, we did other things. So foreign service, then I was in Amsterdam for 2 years. My daughter was born there. My wife was really not liking life in Amsterdam, and we were due to go to Tegucigalpa, Honduras, where we had to go to work in an armored car and have guards, and so kind of quit, came back here to become a teacher, and I've been teaching ever since. So that's my story in a nutshell. If you want to contact me, please use Canvas, and also on the syllabus in the second paragraph is my direct email. If you would, if you send an email to pricest@butte.edu, if you say what class you're in and say the section number, so I know if you're online or face-to-face, then I can answer your question quicker. There's a telephone number there. That telephone number I'll answer during my main campus office hours. So bulleted below, you see Monday, Wednesday, 2 to 3 p.m. main campus. I'll answer then. Otherwise, the link at the bottom of second paragraph, the Zoom link, click on that. If you have Zoom, or you can download it for sure for free from Butte College's website. And then it'll send me an email, a notification that someone's there, and then I'll get on within a few minutes. So anytime during my office hours, click on that and you can see me face to face virtually. Here's how I'm gonna deal with the class. I'm not gonna read this to you. I do want you to read this on your own. I don't want to insult you by reading it to you, so I know you can read. So we're gonna have 3 writing assignments. Those of you who had me in the past, we had 4 in the past. We're gonna do 3, but rather than being worth 50 points as they were in the past, each is gonna be worth 100 points. Now, with that, I'm gonna drop your lowest score. Unless you get all hundreds, and then you should not drop your lowest score. That will help you, but I will drop your lowest score if you'd like me to. These are going to be very detailed prompts. They're going to be ones that it's going to be difficult to pass if you use Chat GPT, because it'll be impossible to pass because they're asking about your personal opinion about what your politics are related to an issue we're talking about, and Chat GPT doesn't do that. I really want you to write. Writing has been absolutely crucial to my success in life and every career. And so I want to give you, I could not do right. I could do this class, especially now that I don't have to work, with just multiple choice tests, and that's it, and not have to do the grading. That'd be easier for me. I wouldn't be doing my job. I know people need to practice. I needed to practice. You need to practice writing. So we'll have this practice as well as some in-class writing assignments where I'll give you an article, a question, we'll discuss it a little bit, and you'll write for about an hour. I know that's really important. Now, is that a little harder on me? Yeah, I've got to read a lot more stuff, but I think it's really, really important to do that for you. And they pay me fine, so don't feel sorry for me at all. We'll have 3 peer discussion assignments where you'll post your writing assignment. And I'm going to do something different from last semester for those who had me last semester. I'm going to require you to be in a certain group of people to respond to. And when they respond to your writing assignment, you must respond back to them. And I'm going to add some wrinkles where I put you in a group of people who all have the same political beliefs. So you can all agree with one another. Yeah, libs are dumb. Oh, those conservatives are heartless. And then I'm going to put you in mixed groups, conservatives and liberals. And we're going to be respectful. And we're going to talk about the issues. And we're going to be rational. And we're not going to call people names. And we can do that. I do that every semester. So there's some slight changes to how I've done that in the past. 2 tests, midterm, final. Might be a couple multiple choice questions, but the previous students, how do you know what is on my midterm and final? Huh? The study guides, and what about in class? The in-class review, but there are other things that yeah, the handouts of the test. What we do in class, what we do in the study guide is the test. So show up and I'll prepare you for those tests. So if you pay attention, studying can be something you don't have to do a whole lot of if you're really tuned in on what we're doing. So that's a huge part of your grade. And I say that to emphasize, that means if you're at all worried about tests, make sure you're doing your utmost to get those other scores really high. So the writing, the peer discussion, a couple of in-class quizzes. I'll tell you about some of them and I'll leave some out. I notice I have a typo there. I say 4 quizzes and then I say 5 over there. If you can cross out where I write 5. Those are 10 points each. And then we'll have 3 opportunities to do write in class, 20 points each. And then what I'm going to ask you to do, so these are all 3-hole punch. I'm going to ask you to keep everything in a binder, and I've ordered a bunch of binders so I can give them to you so you can have them. To have all of your handouts and notes in order. And then before the midterm and the final, I'm going to collect them. I'm going to look at, okay, what are the questions that I asked you, like today? What did I ask you to write?
What is economics and
What's your North Star, right? I'm going to look at, did you take down all the notes that were here? And did you answer the question? I'm going to be a little bit more serious to those folks who had me last semester. about making sure. I think I know I was a little gracious. I'm going to be less gracious. Follow the directions. Again, that makes my job harder, but I'm trying to create in those that don't have it organizational skills that will serve you in the purpose and in the future.
With the question we started with today, I thought we were discussing.
I wanted people in the beginning to write something down. I will give some grace on that because it is the first step. Questions about how I'm grading this? No? We still got a few more minutes. Hold up. Attendance. I'm pretty strict about attendance. Now, let me tell you this, because I'm recording this for my online class, I have a video of every class. So if you miss a class, let me know and I'll send you the video. And then you cannot fall behind on your notes because you're responsible for all the notes. So you can have those notes. Now, don't use that as an excuse not to come to class because I will drop you. Here's the reason. Coming to class is important, not just for learning the material, but what I've noticed because of COVID is that people are not as comfortable in groups and working together. And I know in every job that I've been recruited for, they'll put you in a group of people you don't know and are competing against, give you a hard problem to have you work together, and then watch you to see how you work in a group. So I need you to learn those skills if you don't already have them and hone them. So if you've already honed those skills, now how do you become a leader? Now, how do you help somebody else become a leader? Also, I was a financial aid student. I got very, very minimal. And it's a scarce resource, right? Economics is about how we divide up scarce resources. And I'm not cool with people getting financial aid and then not going to class. And so I know not all of you are on financial aid, but the rule is you stop coming to class if you miss 3 classes in a row. Now, communicate with me. I'm a decent human being. If you're sick for 3 days in the hospital, I'm not going to drop you, but communicate with me. If you stop attending, if you miss 3 classes by the halfway point, 4 by the 12th week, or 5 total, I will likely drop you unless we're in communication, right? If you're sick, let me know, but don't make a habit of not coming to class. I'm really not going to waste your time. Today is a bit of a waste, but I have to go over this. But I'm going to take every moment and hopefully do something provocative, interesting, or something that's related to what you're going to have to demonstrate on the test. I strongly discourage late work. I keep everything open 1 extra day. So our due date's going to be for you guys Sunday. Online, they've got 2 due dates, Thursday and Sunday. I'll keep everything open until Monday. And then if there's something serious going on in your life, I can extend it. But I'll only do that once, unless it's really a bad circumstance. And then for every day that something is late, there'll be a 5% penalty. I feel I do a disservice to students if I just don't have any deadlines, don't teach people to do things on time and be responsible. And so that's why I have that policy. The classroom behavior stuff here, I think we're mature enough not to really need this, but please arrive on time. Don't use your phone in class. When you ask a question or offer your input, please don't make a speech. And if you do, some people like to take up class time because they're really excited about it, and I understand that. I'll just understand if I go like this, I need to ask somebody else, or okay, I need to move on. Just understand that to me, recognizing I have a classroom full of people whose attention is the coin of the realm, right? If I lose your attention, that's tough. And so if someone keeps going on and I realize maybe that person's saying something interesting, but I'm losing some students, I'm gonna have to say, stop, I need to move on. So just be aware that's not personal. It's me trying to keep the class's attention on what we're trying to do. You need to leave early, let me know beforehand. Please be concentrated on this class and not other classes work. And if you've got an individual problem, please see me individually. All right, questions? Yeah. It was just right next to in-class quizzes. It said 4 there. By the way, online class, you have a different syllabus that I went over in the orientation video. Notice where it says 5 quizzes in the narrative, change that to 4. Yeah.
So it sounds like most of our classwork, whether it's essays or other stuff, is going to be turned in class. Is there anything you know about things that then out of class and Canvas.
Yeah. Yeah, so our essays, the 100-point essays, you get to one. When you go there, so note here, this is to give you an idea. Here's the writing prompt, right? It's not just tell me about this. It is nested with lots of component parts, including your political topology. So those of you who had me last semester and took this, take it again, because people change. And then you're going to discuss something around specialization and various concepts that relate to chapter 1 in terms of your political beliefs, in terms of your personal belief. So here you're talking about yourself. ChatGPT is not going to help you on this. Bryce.
No, I was just laughing about that because I ended up like the last time me and Logan were hanging out here and you're like, oh, I'll take it. And he was entry level not left, right sided.
Right.
And I was entry level liberal.
Right.
You know, and you're like, you're not liberal. So I took that test again and I became entry level that. But it was only the change of the questions of by like two
Right.
answers by a degree of like 1 point. And I just find that funny that I was either or, not the middle.
Yeah, and you know what? That brings up also that some of us aren't going to necessarily agree with where this one test puts us, because it's just, I think, 16 questions. And so I also have another test that I put together so I can further understand where we stand. By the way, I'm a liberal Republican or a conservative Democrat, meaning I'm right in the middle. And I'm registered as a Democrat, but I'm a very conservative Democrat. And I will fail everybody who's conservative. That was it. My point being, I don't do anything based on your viewpoints, right? I do it on the power of your arguments. And I know a lot of, and I say that as a joke to also say this, I know a lot of students, especially conservative students on this campus, feel like if they don't toe the liberal line, they do worse. Anybody have felt that? Seen a couple of people? That's not me at all. In fact, I love essays that I disagree with because I want to look at your argument, not your belief system. We all have different upbringings. We all have different assumptions. And that's the beauty of democracy. To me, you know, where I stand in a place where I believe both sides have right answers. That if one side, and none of you, by the way, believe in your party's party platform 100%. Nobody believes, if you're a liberal Democrat, you don't believe in everything the Democrats believe. There's not a single person I've ever met who believes everything. So we're all a mix. And so I definitely honor that. And I definitely be honest about what you believe, because that's not going to negatively affect you. Sorry, I went on a tangent, Joseph. Let me come back to your precise question. Your precise question was turning these in. Note, here's the prompt. Here's the rubric, or the way by which I'll grade this. So you'll see where you'll gain and lose points. Then there's simply a button to upload and or drag your file here. It uploads it, it checks it against other students in the past, and it checks it against the web. So make sure you quote and cite anything you get from the web. And then, like I say, these prompts just ChatGPT. By the way, some people, especially online, not accusing anyone in this current class, would sometimes put in like their personal response and an obvious ChatGPT mumbo jumbo and then personal response. Don't do that because it's obvious, and I'm going to grade accordingly to that. Ask around. It's something teachers are freaking out about, but all you need to do is just be personal. What else? Other questions? Yeah, Patrick. Patrick? Parker, sorry. Typed, double spaced. I like double spaced. MLA, AP, I don't care about any of that. Yeah, unless I ask it, but I don't believe I do in any of our assignments. Okay, so let's look at what's coming forward. So here's our class calendar. Our class calendar is planned out to the end of the semester. So we can see when everything's due, when you can click on many of the assignments and you'll have a description of what's there. And if we look at next class, note what I want you to do. Read chapter 1. And if I click here, read the articles in the chapter 1 learning module under reading assignment. I'm going to go there. By the way, there meaning chapter 1, I can get to in 2 ways: by clicking on chapter 1 or going to modules. So Can you see the laser or no? A little bit, right there. Here's our textbook. Chapter 1 in PDF form, chapter 1 in online version. So use either one. It's free. All our chapters will be on our website. You don't have to buy a book. So read that for next class, and then read the first two right here. This is not going to be, this is shown on the online class. You'll have one that says 1 and 2. So how Uber got lost and how to thrive in the gig economy. What we'll do at the end of class is I'll put you in small groups and I'll ask you questions about the concepts we learned in chapter 1 and how they relate to those articles and the concepts in those articles. Make sense? So for next class, do chapter 1, read these 2 articles in chapter 1 learning module. Anything else? Don't get used to me being done early, but we're done early. So everyone, looking forward to the semester.